Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of One Piece Season 14, Part 2, covering the post-war arc. So, I finished this portion. I've already also gotten into the next portion, so if I accidentally have any bleed-over effects, I'm sorry. But, so I thought this was better off because of how I did Season 13, and there was a nice kind of stopping effect in the middle of the Marineford arc. So now we are covering the post-war kind of one, and I'm kind of glad I did this because this was the kind of weirder aspect for it. I kind of liked what they were able to kind of accomplish with the Marineford, Luffy, having his grief moment and Jinbei kind of helping him out, and then we get to this post-war one. And I was really confused on how this went off. Mainly because of the pacing and the execution. I don't mind that we got more backstory on Ace, and the new character that we learned about Sabo, and Luffy as they're younger and growing up, and how they were raised by Dadan and her mountain bandits. It's just, it really kind of took it at, like, I understand that we've been through a lot of heavy shit with Luffy losing Ace, the whole war, Whitebeard being killed, us understanding that now the Navy is attempting to utilize this as a win, and it's not really a win for them, because more pirates than ever are just fucking cracking and racking, because, hey, Whitebeard shouted that the One Piece is real, kind of reinvigorating the Great Pirate Era, and setting other people off, and it's just like, and seeing how horrendous the Marines actually are. We do learn that Kobe has now figured out how he's like has hockey. And it's like, okay, that seems kind of random, but all right. And we kind of learn more about hockey kind of more towards the end of this portion, as it becomes pretty much central in other kind of characters, and at least giving them more of an ability to fight more on levels with devil fruit users. I actually kind of like that. More utilization for people that aren't like, yeah, those are kind of cool powers, but I kind of don't want to just immediately instamert myself if I get into some water or whatnot. You know what I mean? So I like that introduction to it. However, I'm just like, what? Because it's kind of sporadic at the moment, at least with how it's presented to me. Everything that was going on with Luffy and Shanks, and kind of that build up to those kind of moments of Luffy utilizing hockey without even understanding what's kind of going on. Yeah, I'm cool with that. Kobe, I'm just like, I understand you need to somehow kind of get into an ability to kind of figure out, and it kind of, I understand that he'd gone through a very stressful moment, and it's kind of working along the same lines as Luffy, just tapping into it. It's just like, what the fuck? So we'll kind of have to see how that works out with Kobe. Like, I'm not against it. It's just we have a lot more questions at this point than answers in regards to hockey. And let's just like, now granted, this series will probably delve more deeply into that. So that could be a thing that like goes away. So we'll get there eventually. But we spend a bulk of this getting the backstory of Ace and Sabo, them pretty much going through this junkyard, building up their stuff, stealing from pirates and other people to build up a horde so that way they can leave the island. Makes sense. And Luffy just doesn't want to be alone. He wants to have a kind of family and everything. That's kind of why he wants to be king of the pirates and all that. Sabo is a noble that truly despises his parents because they're awful fucking people. They even adopted someone to have a backup kid. Fuck that noise. And the thing is, they're pretty much, the royalty want to like wipe out the town because a celestial dragon's coming to visit. It's like, oh god. Dadan at least works out pretty well. Like, I like that she has feelings for the kids, but for the most part, they just go off and fucking do shit on their own, and then they just come back and are like, we're gonna eat all this food. And I kind of would have liked smaller moments of her actually spending time with them, doing things with them, teaching them maybe certain kind of skills. It was just, it slammed everything. I'm like, I understand making sure we understand Luffy's grief, but I had really understood it up until this point already, and it just felt like it kind of cracked the momentum for me until we get towards the end bit, and the end bit kind of stretches it even further, in my opinion, because we just kind of check in with certain kind of characters, pretty much the Straw Hat crew, as they're like put everywhere else before we kind of set ourselves up for the time skip. Also, Usopp, him just getting fat just felt like a joke, pretty much along the same vein as Fat Thor in Endgame. Though, granted, it has a better kind of, well, they do the same kind of payoff, because then in Love and Thunder he's back to beefed form, and Usopp gets he doesn't get like to the level of Frankie, but like he's jacked as well. We'll talk about that later. Robin's animation really threw me off because it was kind of rougher and almost to the like an unfinished kind of one. I don't mind that, but it wasn't to the same kind of feeling as the other ones. Usopp's was the only other one that I remember that kind of echoed the same kind of feel for it. It was just very kind of strange, as those two only had that kind of style. And I was just like, what the fuck's kind of going on here? So the main bulk is that we see the Celestial Dragon come. Sabo's like, I'm fucking out of here, bitches. And he's got his little ship and everything, and then Celestial Dragon blows his ass up. We also see that Dragon had, before this part, connected up with Sabo, and he's like, this kid hates himself because of all the shit that the Goa Kingdom has done, and kind of connects with him. And since I've got the latest kind of collections as well, the one that just came out recently, actually, too, got delivered this week. So I know that Sabo kind of comes back because we see that Dragon like had collected something, and Eva's like, what the fuck are you doing here? And we see a young Zoro as well, as they're pretty much making their plans and doing their Revolution Army shit. And of course, Ace goes off, Luffy goes off, and then we get back to the present. We see Jinbei kind of working Luffy through his grief. Him just being like, he's like, Luffy, him talking to him really works very well. He's like, listen, I know that this is hard, but there's still joy to be found in life, and there's still other reasons to live. And then he remembers his crew, and he's like, I've got my crew. And just seeing him cry and everything on that it was nice to have Jinbei kind of bring him back to that. We also don't know why Trafalgar Law saved Luffy's life, and we'll have to see that kind of later on, because they don't really expand upon it much here. We see that Rayleigh is able to find them, just swam, fucking thunder cracks a fucking Sea King's like, yeah, what up, bitch? And we see that he also knows Boa Hancock, the sisters and everything. Oh, they're like, hey, Rayleigh, how you doing? And he then wants to talk to Luffy, because they're supposed to meet back at Sabayori in like 3 days. And Riley's like, you're not in any kind of condition, neither's your crew. How about we kind of train your ass up and do stuff along those lines? So Luffy, Rayleigh, and Jinbei pretty much take a marine ship, go to Marineford. Luffy pays his respects for those of them fallen, does flowers and everything, and has a tattoo similar along the veins of Ace's that has 3D, 2Y. He rings the bell 16 times for like ring out 1 year and ring in a new year. And we see that the code is pretty much that they're not meeting in Sabayori in 3 days, but instead 2 years. And this sets them up. We then check in with everybody as well, and they pretty much just stay put. Chopper was pretty much almost going there on the bird. He's like, all right, I'll do this, stay here. Because everybody was, after they got the news of Ace's death, they all wanted to go and help Luffy, which I loved, because it showcased that the crew understands what Luffy has been able to do for them, but they want to be there for Luffy, all of them. And that just really does a very good job of showcasing how these characters are connected and everything that's going on, because they do understand the kind of shitty situation that they're all put into. However, they also think of others as well, and they're like, yeah, we got to get out of here. But then once they see Luffy's message and understand it, even though Zoro kind of has some issues with it, but we also learn that he somehow got cracked onto the island of Mihawk, Hawkeye. Hawkeye's Mihawk, yeah. And Varun is there as well, and he then asks Mihawk to train him. Eva trains pretty much. Well, Eva and his group train Sanji. The Bugman trains Usopp. Nami's able to get the Sky Wizards to help her out. Chopper's able to learn stuff about medicine, and Nico pretty much helps the rest of the revolutionary people. Frankie accidentally blows himself up, but is able to use Vegapunk's kind of stuff to like upgrade himself and train himself. What am I missing? And then Brook pretty much gets captured by like these long arm people. It's like, okay, we'll see how this kind of works out. And that's pretty much where this part ends. It's a really weird kind of, I think, pretty much trying to get into a kind of transition mode. Now, I don't know how the manga was kind of going at this point, so this one feels more kind of like a stretching, especially like loading with Luffy, Ace, and Sabo. Now, granted, I like that kind of deep dive and everything. Actually, in the next season, there's going to be kind of flashbacks that go into stuff as well. And I think that is better executed because it's more of a kind of natural point that we still keep getting connected. Okay, I know this is kind of weird, but it kind of helps me out in how I'm comparing these. Whereas in this, we pretty much just leave Luffy dealing with his grief and then pretty much get cracked into this whole kind of flashback sequence. Whereas in the next season, we get information that we need pertaining to the politics of what's kind of going on in the island, while still checking in with what's going on in the present day. It's better of a balancing act that makes it so that way you're not like completely thrown off and being like, what's going on with the present now at this point? Though granted, the point that we're at here at the post-war arc isn't, it's like, Luffy is still dealing with his grief with Ace. It's like, okay, it's not that hard of one to remember, but you're like, how's he going to get through this next time on Dragon Ball Z? And then we're like going through all this stuff, and we're like, have this circus. Like, I like Sabo. I like understanding the whole politics of the Goa Kingdom, the Revolutionary Army, nobles acting stupid. Here's the thing. Even though that I have problems with that, I really like seeing that Goa Kingdom and that place because they're like, you go through these stupid rings, onion layers of this town where they're like, oh, they're burning that place. Fuck those people. Where the other ones are like, that could come over and hurt us. And then we go into the next one up, and they're like, oh, screw them, they're not people. And then like the nobles and everything is like, oh my god, you fucking assholes. And Sabo's like, they're people. You're murdering people. You're hurting people for no reason. And him fighting that, it was very good to see. And seeing Ace and Luffy and Don trying to deal with Blue Jam and all that kind of shit. And Blue Jam thinking, hey, I'm going to be up there. It's like, that's never how it works. Whenever somebody who is in a perceived element of power tries to be like, oh yeah, you'll be up here, I'll give you that shit, never believe them. Okay? Like, if they're trying to play that kind of power game, if somebody's trying to like take down and make a kind of fair, equitable system like Vivi, for instance, that's a different kind of matter. You do have to look into the context of what's going on, but if it's like, oh yeah, just kill these kind of people that I deem unworthy, and I'll pay you off and get you up here. No, they're just doing your dirty work. You're just doing their dirty work for them. Fuck that noise. So I did like seeing all that stuff. I just wish it hadn't come at the cost of the momentum of us going through the rest of it, which still kind of got fucked up because it was still stretched off and where we had to recheck in with the Straw Hat crew as they're pretty much learning about Ace and everything. And then Luffy giving his message and everything. Though I do like Rayleigh getting through to Luffy and being like, you're not ready, you need to train up. And pretty much setting him up to train with Haki and go on to this kind of crazy place. And then we kind of learn more about, is it in this one? Pardon me, excuse me. Yes, we do learn about Haki here. like there's 3 types, and Luffy needs to be taught pretty much 2 of them and then control of the 3rd one. Observational Haki, which is like feeling presences and all that, and Armament Haki, like an invisible shield and can render a Logia Devil Fruit user unconscious, and that can be transferred to a weapon, or we'll see later on other kind of things as well. And then of course the Conqueror's Haki, which is the rare kind of type. So that's kind of cool, and learning about that and seeing that it's a kind of balance on what Devil Fruit users can do and utilize. And learning that that was kind of, we saw in Skypiea, the little girl, even though they called it Mantra, she could use Haki, pretty much the observational one. So it's cool to kind of get these callbacks and everything. That's the kind of stuff that I love, and I think is a very great strength of this anime, manga, and this story. The layering and the utilization of world lore, character lore, and building the stories like this. It's part, like, the characters drew me in, the premise drew me in, and then everything starts kind of building onto it, and you start learning more and more, and you're like, oh god, fight these motherfuckers, take this shit out, because you're like, oh, pirates, like, there's good pirates and bad pirates, there's good Marines and bad Marines. If we get Kobe and others like him, would they be able to change the way the world government is run? And because at this point, they're just essentially another pirate faction that is more legitimate than the others in what I've seen. And because of how they go about their absolute justice and everything. So we'll see how that kind of works out in the rest of the seasons. I'm going through the Fishman Island arc now. That one is about 60-some episodes. 62, I believe. $62. Yes. Now, sorry about that. If there is a kind of nice stopping point, I might halvesies it, but it's mainly going to be on a case-by-case basis on certain kind of seasons. I mainly did this one because I thought that the other 2 parts went better together, and I'm like, I can see how this post-war arc kind of works out. And this actually kind of worked out better in my favor, because these issues were not in the first half of Marineford, and I'm able to expound more upon them here and why I kind of had the issues, because it just felt like it took a little bit too long to kind of get through certain kind of things, but I don't know if they needed to pretty much pad time to allow the manga to get to certain points or whatnot. So I do understand that that pops into an effect, though granted, I would, even though I know people want to make sure that they've got a better kind of money stream, sometimes it's better to take a hiatus and kind of wait out certain kind of things, instead of just like lengthening stuff for no true reason, or just saying fuck it, like Game of Thrones. Like, honestly, it would have really been an interesting kind of thing if they're like, okay, Martin, we're gonna hiatus this thing, get to it, and see if that had had any effect. Now granted, that's just more speculation, but it's interesting of what I'm able to kind of come up with and see with what's going on here. But we're trucking along, we're getting through. I'm 500 ass deep. We'll see how this kind of works out, and it's kind of funny because I liked what they were able to do with the live action one, and now I'm trying to see how they're going to be able to condense certain kind of things into story arcs, or if I'm like, you're going to have to up some episode counts, my brothers and sisters and everything in between, because certain things you're going to have to, or you're going to have to start like, and make sure you have your episodes working out well enough. So it's kind of interesting to see these and figure out what's kind of going to be going on and how this kind of works out. Now, I don't know if I'll watch any of the movies at any kind of point, because that did kind of pop up on certain kind of episodes. It's like, this is tied to the movie. It's like, alright. That didn't happen in this arc, but we'll kind of see what kind of goes on. But even though this one was more to me, I am still loving the characters and set up for an interesting kind of time skip we'll see how 2 years affects our crew and what kind of goes on from there. So those are my opinions on this season, my part 2 of the review. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.